everyone, welcome to another episode of PBIX A11Y Bytes. My name is Juliana and today we're going to talk about something that may sound subjective and even hard to relate to, but actually it has a huge impact on how people who rely on screen readers experience our reports and dashboards, and this is alternative text. If our dashboards and reports look great, but someone cannot see the screen, of course, the insight is lost, and that's why alternative text in Power BI matters. Alternative text, also known for short as alt text, is a description of a visual that screen readers use to explain the charts to someone who can't see it. And if you're wondering, do I have to create alternative text everywhere? I'll say pinch of salt there. I think it is really important to tailor your alternative text to the user who relies on screen readers. What kind of insight they need? Why? Why does that report matter for them? So, of course, it always starts before we even open Power BI. It is when we are gathering requirements, when we are understanding our audience. Now, okay, let's say, Juliana, I want to get started with it. What is a good alternative text? How to get started? I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I'm here to try to explain to you. I'm also still learning, so let's see what we can do. Before we actually look into alternative text, let's try to navigate this report that I have here, very simple, that does not have alternative text, using a screen reader. So if you have Windows 11, there is a built-in screen reader, it's called Narrator, that you can use to test your reports. And there is a keyboard shortcut to call it, so if you hold Control, the Windows key, and Enter.
Loom countdown scan, Narrator window heading level 1. Welcome to Narrator. This is Narrator Home, where you can get help, access your settings, and learn about new features. Narrator on off, text box. Visual container header toolbar, more. Select region, slicer. Select region at visual subtitle, slicer. Cost and revenue, line chart. Exiting Narrator.
It is a very overwhelming experience because Narrator starts reading absolutely everything. And I don't know if you noticed that when it started on the title, which is a text box, it didn't read the title. So even though it's a text box, if you don't have alternative text, it will not say what's written in it. Now that we know what it is like to use a screen reader and you have to use this report without alternative text, it says nothing. Just text box, line chart, slicer, select region. It's just doesn't have enough information. Now, if you ask me what is my approach when creating alternative text, it's very simple. Let's say I don't have a specific use, so it's a bit subjective. But what I do is see what are the measures that I create for that report and how I can construct a narrative. We don't need to say absolutely everything that is on the chart because it will not add much value in that. So what I do, I go to Copilot, I explain the measures I have, and I try to say, oh, I want to show how it is changing over time. Oh, in this case, it's cost and revenue, how my cost is doing compared to the previous month. So this is an example. Now, if you still want something a bit more structured, on PBIX A11Y, there is a tool, a free tool as well, that can help you listen what you need to create alternative text. So let me show you quickly. So if I go on the tools, there is the option to select alt text guidance. And alt text guidance, it is just a template that will help you build in a prompt. So everything that you need, at least to start, to copy to your preferred AI tool. It could be Copilot, Claude, whatever you prefer. I think Copilot does a really good job for this. So in this case, it's a line chart. And then there is here templates that you can just copy and paste whatever you want, or you can follow every step that you follow. So decorative, if it's decorative, you have to hide in the tab order. So it doesn't matter here. But then you can list whatever the category fields are. So if you have projects, I don't know, disciplines, departments, what are the value fields? What are the measures? Do you have anything like month over month, year over year? Is there any specific filter applied? Conditional formatting, anything that happens in your report. And also if there is a drill-through enabled. And that takes you to the next stage. And this is what is very, very important. What is the key insights that you're trying to convey? So this is an example. You don't need, you can give an example. I think in AI, if you give an example, it works much better. And then we have context. Context is very important. So what are the units? Is it millions, pounds, dollars, time period? What is covering? Is it series that is from, I don't know, since 1950s? Is a specific financial year? What is the time period of your report? If it's not applicable, okay. Comparison, are you comparing anything? Previous month, previous year? Do you have a target that you have to compare? And audience is very important because the type of audience, you may give more details or less details, but you don't actually need to add audience in your alternative text. Once you're filling all these boxes, it gives you a structure prompt that you can use. You can copy and paste to Copilot, Claude, or whatever AI you use to help you building the narrative. And this is exactly the method I use to create the alternative text for this specific example. Now, there are different ways of creating alternative text. So first, if I click here on my chart, on the format pane and the properties, there is the option here, alt text. You can type in static alternative text. There is a limit of 250 characters. And it also means that when your data refreshed, you're going to have to manually update it. And if you have slices on your screen, the alternative text is not going to reflect the selection on the slices. So it's not a very good option. But Power BI allows us to select to use conditional formatting, so we can create a measure that will dynamically change according to filter selections or whenever your data is refreshed. And I think that is a much better approach. And also it does not have a limitation in number of characters. Now, of course, you're not going to write an entire chapter on your chart because it has to be to the point and not overwhelm the user. Now, when I create alternative text using DAX, I had this idea to experiment. Actually, it wasn't my idea. I read someone talking about in a blog post and suggested the idea of using UDF, so user-defined functions for alternative text. And I was like, yes, that can be quite a good approach. I waited for a while. I didn't see any update, so I decided to look into it. And user-defined functions are great for alternative text because you can pack narratives and reuse them. And of course, you may have to adapt, but it is really good. I am actually creating a library of alternative text UDFs. So if I go here to my DAX query view, I'm going to show you my UDF. So you always have to start your UDF with define, and I call my function, so it's alt text, line chart, and I define here all my parameters. So I have string for text and numeric for all my measures. And then from there, I can create more variables. So for example, I use some of the existing measures here to create this trend. So rev change, so this one here. And this is the narrative that I want to build depending on the value of my measure. So I did that for my revenue, for my cost. And something that's very important with screen reader is that it will read every decimal that you have in a number, regardless of how you format it. So you have to add a clause here, a variable in this case, to format how many decimals I want for every value, every measure that you have a number. And after that, I create this to say this is for my year-to-date revenue and year-to-date costs. Again, a little bit more of narrative and formatting values. And then this is building my trend clause, measure clause, everything. And then I finally bring everything together in my return. Now, once you create a UDF, you still have to create a measure to call your UDF. So in this case, I have here my measure, and you have to add a parameter, a measure or something for every one that you define on the UDF. In this case, I don't have category, so what's supposed to be here, and I just type in blank. So it skips and it does not give me an error. If you don't want to go through UDF, you don't think it's too complicated, you don't want to have to learn how to create UDFs, that's absolutely fine. You can just use DAX. So here is my measure, which of course I'm going to call all the measures that I already created. And all the narrative that it was on my UDF, it's going to have to be here. So from the text that you want to say to format the values, so everything. So of course your measure is going to be much bigger. So here's got 95 rows, and it can be, depending how much you add, it can be harder to troubleshoot if you start having errors, but that's absolutely fine. You can have the same result. And these two, if I now go back, I created this page here, you can see one I call the measure with the UDF, and the other one is just the DAX that I just showed you, and you can have the same result. Now, how can we add to our chart? So if you go if you click on the chart again, properties, and then alt text, you're going to format style is the field value, and then you can choose whatever alt text you want. Now, I don't have alt text here, I don't have alt text here, so I'm going to come to another page that it has got alternative text, hopefully, in everything. Yes, so I'm now going to call narrator, and let's see how it will read this report.
Page title, Sales Summary, text box. Select region, slicer, select region. Cost and revenue trend over January 2026 to June 2026. Measures shown, revenue, cost. Filters applied, region equals north. Cost is decreasing slightly. Current month cost is 194,000, minus 1.0% lower than the previous month, 196,000. Revenue is decreasing slightly. Current month revenue is 330,000, minus 2.9% lower than the previous month, 340,000. Year-to-date revenue is 1,765,000 and year-to-date cost is 1,072,000. Units, GBP. Line chart. Exiting narrator.
Right. Of course, it's not reading perfectly because I'm using Power BI Desktop, so it's going to go through the formatting, the editing options. But now you can see that actually read my page title. It said say a summary. It went through my my slicer and got to my line chart. It said more than just a line chart, and it gave the insight that I found it would be appropriate. Now you can have different alternative text for the same visual, depends on what you want to focus on. Now, I'm going to put on the video description, I have a repository on GitHub where there are 3 different UDFs that you can use for alternative text. I'm going to try to add more and more. So it's like a library. Let me just show you quick. So here it is. There are 3 UDFs. So there is context. So if you want to say reporting month, there are departments, reporting period. So this is going to add context, so you can actually use it as part of your alternative text. There is also another narrative here about changes happening. So there is here the current metric value, how it compares to a previous period, whether increased, decreased, or remain flat. An optional contextual text as well that you can add from the first UDF. And there is also this alt text, this exact example that I just showed you on the line chart, and you can also download the Power BI file if you want to explore, or you can also just go to see the actual UDF. All the code, all the documentation is here. Now, I hope now you feel less lost and you actually will practice creating alternative text. Don't feel the pressure that you have to do everything at once. The idea is it's not to make you feel overwhelmed. It is to give you a guidance, and you see that it is possible to get started. And sometimes I actually spend a lot of time because I find it quite cool to play with UDFs and DAX. That's it for me today. It's goodbye from me now, and see you on the next video.